Hello, potatoes. I have a feeling that these intros are just going to keep getting weirder and we are not going to judge it. We're just going to go with it, okay? So today's potato bite is about sizing using percentage. Long story short, the width or height of a container is 100%. You can divide that 100% up between all of the elements inside of that container in order to have them dynamically size on different screen sizes. Now let's take a look at a practical example. Over here, I have a container, and inside of it, I have a bunch of single containers. So each of these containers are set to a width of 200 pixels. What we want to do is we kind of want them to fill this container. In order to do that, you can just set the width to be 100%. In theory, yes, this is correct. You'll notice that it's overflowing that container. The reason for that is we have a border on it. And you have to remember that borders affect the width and the height of an element. So you can change it to outline. Automatically, you'll see it is exactly the same size as the container. But let's say, for example, we still want that white container border. What we can do is we can add a margin. Let's say we want a margin of about 5 pixels, right? Again, it's moving to the side, it's overflowing, it's being weird. That's because pixels and percentages don't necessarily work very well together. If you're using 100% width and you want to use a margin of 5 pixels, that's not always going to give you the desired result. It might sometimes, but what's better is to make this a percentage too. So we want a 1% margin, but now it's overflowing again, right? The reason for that is because we've already used up 100% of this space that we have. So if we lower this to 99%, you'll see better, but it's still not right, because remember, margin applies on both left and right sides, right? So boom, 98. And you'll see suddenly we fit. The height wasn't necessarily affected right now because I had applied Flexbox. So you'll see that the purple is showing some overflow and it just automatically sized them, which is why you aren't seeing any weird things with the margin at this point. Now let's move on to the height. In our example here, we have different types of content and they demand different percentages of space or real estate on the web page. So just a hi John Rando, that's about a 20% width of height. Okay, we take a look at your count balances. I feel like that's quite important. So a height of about, let's say 40%. It's not the wind, if it's not the dogs, it's a fucking plane. Anyway, over here we have a big banner. It's probably from marketing, you guessed right. We're going to set its height to be probably something like a 30% because it's not as important as your balance, but it's probably going to contain a promotion that'll increase that balance. And then we have a bunch of links to nowhere. We have 10% left anyways, so you don't really have a choice. So we've divided up the 100% for this container. Now let's try and resize this baby. You'll notice that beyond the very cool potato dance, when I resize this thing, it's not really changing anything. The reason for that is the main container of containers, has a set height. So no matter what kind of voodoo percentage magic you do, you are not going to get it resized unless you give it a scalable or dynamic size. A very useful unit for this is something called viewport height, or if you're doing it on a width side of life, you want viewport width. Okay, so in order to make this scalable, let's say we want this height to be 80 viewport height. That's how big this special menu. I'm just going to delete this because it's in my way. We want the special menu to be 80 viewport height. So now, if I do this, if I dynamically resize the screen, you'll see that, I mean, obviously at some point some overflow is going to occur because we're not scaling the text size. We're not, making the borders smaller. We are just letting it live its best life. But you can see how the percentages work. The exact same applies for width. So currently this is a very static width. So if we make this, we want it at 80. Now by resizing this, it'll automatically resize. This specifically works great with Flexbox. If you haven't checked that out, there's a link over here. And then that's all for today. If you have any suggestions, remember to leave them in the comments below.